This story is titled, My Parents Forcibly Removed My Name from the Inheritance List to add my golden brother's pregnant girlfriend. So when I discovered this betrayal, I moved to another city. Now they're desperately begging for forgiveness because they can't handle all the bills without my help. Subreddit. My name is Marcus, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a project coordinator for commercial renovations, and today I learned what family really means. Or at least what mine thinks it means. For the past 3 years straight, I've been carrying these people financially. Every single expense you can think of falls on my shoulders. The mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, repairs, everything. It's all been coming out of my paycheck while they live completely rent-free. My dad has been on disability ever since his back went out at the warehouse job he used to have. It's been years now, but he still can't seem to get back on his feet. My mom can't even leave the house anymore without having severe panic attacks, which means she's completely unable to work or contribute anything financially. Then there's my brother Tyler, who has somehow managed to earn what I like to call a PhD in job hopping and collecting unemployment benefits. The guy can't hold down any position for more than a few weeks at a time. Growing up, I was always the reliable one, the responsible one in the family. While Tyler was out getting high behind the local Burger King with his loser friends, I was working summers doing roofing jobs with my dad's construction crew. I learned early on that work meant money, and money meant freedom and independence. That work ethic stuck with me through everything. I went to community college for project management while still living at home, saving every single penny I could. I had what I thought was a pretty typical plan for my life. Graduate, land a good job, move out into my own place, and finally start living my adult life on my own terms. It seemed straightforward enough, and I was excited about finally having my independence. But then life happened, and everything I had planned got completely derailed. My dad's injury came at the worst possible timing, right when I was about to sign a lease on my first apartment. I had everything ready to go, the deposit saved up, first month's rent sitting in my account, and boxes already packed and stacked in my room. I was literally days away from moving out and starting my real life. Then I got that phone call that changed everything. It was my dad, and he was actually crying on the phone. Real tears, not the manipulation kind. He told me they were going to lose the house because they couldn't make the mortgage payments anymore. My mom was having panic attacks so severe she couldn't function at all, and Tyler was nowhere to be found. Probably passed out drunk on some friend's couch like usual. So I made the decision that seemed right at the time. I unpacked all those boxes I had so carefully packed. I took the money I had saved for my apartment, my deposit, my first month's rent, my security deposit, and used it to cover their mortgage payment instead. I told myself it was just temporary, just until my dad could get back on his feet, until my mom could stabilize her mental health, and until Tyler could grow the hell up and start acting like an adult. 3 years later, I'm still waiting for any of that to happen. Anyway, the other night I was sitting in my room eating some questionable Thai takeout that had been sitting in my fridge a little too long when my mom called me. She only ever calls when someone's dead or when she needs something from me. And since nobody was dead, I knew exactly what this was going to be about. Tyler's coming home with his girlfriend, she announced without any preamble. Then she dropped the real bomb. She's pregnant. I just kept stirring my pad thai, waiting for the inevitable catch that I knew was coming. And sure enough, there it was. They'll need the bedroom, she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. You can take the garage for a while. Notice how she wasn't asking me if this arrangement would work for me. She was telling me. This was a decision that had already been made without any input from the person who actually pays for everything in this house. The garage. You know, that place where normal people store their lawnmowers and Christmas decorations. The same garage with a concrete floor, exactly one electrical outlet that probably violates several building codes, and gaps in the walls that let in whatever weather decides to blow through. It's not exactly what you'd call livable space by any reasonable standard. How long? I asked, though I already knew what the answer was going to be. Just temporary, she replied, using that magic word that had somehow stretched 3 years so far. Right. Everything in this family has been temporary for 3 years running. Dad's disability checks were supposed to be temporary. Mom's complete inability to work or function was supposed to be temporary. Tyler's endless cycle of getting fired from dead-end jobs was supposed to be temporary. All of it was just supposed to be short-term situations that would resolve themselves quickly. Except the bills I've been paying every single month for 3 years, those have been permanently my responsibility. I said all right and hung up the phone. Because honestly, what else was I going to say? Start a big fight with my mom about fairness and how screwed up this whole situation is? Argue with her about why I should get to keep my own bedroom in a house I've been financially supporting? That's not how this family works, and I learned that lesson a long time ago. Tyler has always been the golden child in this family. He's the one who gets rescued from every bad situation, accommodated no matter how unreasonable his requests, and forgiven for every screw-up and bad decision. I learned years ago that pushing back against this dynamic just gets you labeled as the difficult one, the selfish one, the family member who doesn't understand what loyalty really means. So I said okay and accepted it, but my mind immediately started doing the math. 4 adults were about to be living off what I provide financially, while I get relocated to what amounts to a concrete box with a space heater that barely works. The more I thought about it, the more the reality of the situation hit me. The thing is, after what happened with my dad's injury, I took over absolutely everything in this household. The whole house runs entirely on my paycheck while they live completely rent-free. And what made the situation even worse is that I was good at it. Too good, actually. I made managing everything look so easy that they completely forgot what financial struggle even felt like. I became their human shock absorber for every financial hit that came their way. Mortgage payments were always made on time, no matter what. The fridge was always fully stocked with food. The utilities never got shut off, not even once. They forgot what it was like to worry about money because I absorbed all of that stress and responsibility for them. They became so comfortable with this arrangement that they stopped seeing it as me helping them out. It just became the normal way things worked. Now, here I am, 28 years old, making decent money at my job, and I'm about to be sleeping in a garage because my brother Tyler apparently never figured out how birth control works. It's absolutely insane when you really think about it. That night I sat in my room, which was about to become their room, and really looked around at everything. The furniture that I had bought with my own money, my computer setup that I need for work, the bathroom that I had renovated myself on weekends, putting in new tile and fixtures with my own hands and my own money. All of it was about to become the property of my unemployed brother and whatever her name is. I started calling her Brittany in my head because I never bothered to learn her actual name. It seemed fitting somehow, so I started browsing apartment listings online, telling myself I was just looking around and getting a sense of what was available. But something fundamental had shifted in my thinking. This wasn't really about losing a bedroom anymore. This was about 3 years of being treated like a resource instead of like a person. I was tired of being seen as nothing more than a walking ATM and maintenance service. The next afternoon, they finally rolled up to the house. Tyler showed up with Brittany and their entire life packed into exactly 2 garbage bags. This guy doesn't even own a proper suitcase, but somehow he thinks he's ready for the responsibilities of fatherhood. She looked like she was maybe 24 years old, and she had that entitled expression that some young women get when they think being pregnant automatically makes them special and deserving of everyone else's resources. Before she had even unpacked a single thing, she was already talking about nursery colors and baby names like she owned the place. She walked into my bedroom and immediately started planning where she would put all her stuff. I watched her measuring the walls with her phone, talking excitedly about where the crib would go and how she would arrange the furniture. Tyler just settled onto the couch, talking about how grateful they both were for this opportunity. Like showing up with nothing and taking over someone else's space was some kind of achievement. "This is perfect," Brittany said, standing in my bedroom doorway and looking around with satisfaction. "The natural light in here is going to be amazing for the baby." My natural light. In my bedroom. For their baby. I didn't say a word to either of them. I just grabbed my essential belongings and moved out to the garage, leaving everything else behind in the room except for my gaming setup. I figured I'd let them think they'd hit the jackpot for now. They would learn soon enough what it actually costs to maintain all that stuff when you're the one responsible for paying for it. The garage was exactly what you'd expect from an unfinished space that was never meant for human habitation. Concrete floor that stayed cold no matter what the weather was like outside. No insulation whatsoever in the walls or ceiling. One electrical outlet that probably violates multiple building codes and looks like it was installed sometime in the 1970s. There was an ancient couch in there that was probably hosting its own entire ecosystem of bacteria and mold at this point. The window didn't close properly, so whatever weather felt like visiting outside became my weather too. I set up my sleeping bag on that diseased couch and plugged in the space heater, which sounded like it was dying a slow, mechanical death every time it kicked on. Then I just sat there in the dark, listening to them upstairs moving my stuff around, getting comfortable in my space, watching my TV using my Netflix account that I pay for every month. I could hear Brittany squealing with excitement about the walk-in closet. The same walk-in closet that I had built with my own hands last year. I had spent 3 entire weekends framing it out, hanging drywall, and installing custom shelving systems, all for my own use. Now it was going to be storage space for maternity clothes from Walmart. That's when it really hit me like a punch to the gut. This arrangement wasn't temporary for them at all. They had found their newest mark, their latest solution to avoiding real adult responsibilities and the harsh realities of life. And I had been enabling this whole dysfunctional dynamic for 3 solid years. Hell no. I was done with this. I started making real concrete plans that very night. I began browsing apartment listings seriously and calculating exactly what it would take to completely extract myself from this situation. I had bank accounts that they didn't know about, automatic bill payments that I could stop whenever I wanted, and utilities that were all in my name that could disappear with a phone call. The first week was subtle in terms of the changes I made. They were still riding high on their new living arrangement and feeling pretty good about themselves, so they didn't notice the small shifts in my behavior. I stopped being helpful with everything. When you've been everyone's go-to problem solver for 3 straight years, just stopping that behavior is actually pretty radical. On Monday morning, Brittany approached me as I was heading out the door to work. "The coffee maker's not working right," she announced, like it was my job to fix it. I looked at her, then looked at the coffee maker, then looked back at her. I said absolutely nothing and just walked out the door. All I could think about was who the hell told her that I'm the designated repair guy in this house, and what gave her the nerve to approach me directly like that, expecting me to drop everything and solve her problems. In the past, I would have spent 10 minutes diagnosing what was wrong with the machine, cleaning out the mineral deposits, and explaining to her how to properly maintain it so the problem wouldn't happen again. But not anymore. She could figure out for herself why the water tasted like garbage, or she could drink instant coffee. It wasn't my problem to solve. On Tuesday, my mom mentioned that the kitchen faucet was dripping. I was sitting at the table reading news on my phone when she brought it up the first time. When I didn't respond immediately, she mentioned it again. This time louder, thinking that maybe I just hadn't heard her the first time. I heard her perfectly fine. I just didn't care anymore. That faucet had been dripping for 2 solid weeks at that point. In the past, it would have driven me absolutely crazy, so I would have fixed it immediately without anyone even having to ask. I knew exactly what the problem was. It needed new washers and the packing nut needed to be tightened. It was a 5-minute job that I could do in my sleep. Now it could drip until the entire basement flooded for all I cared. That same day, I spent my lunch break looking at apartment listings online more seriously. Everything decent was way out of my price range when I was supporting 4 people financially. Studio apartments were going for what I used to think was reasonable rent back when I only had to worry about myself. It really made me realize just how deep in the financial hole I had gotten myself by carrying everyone else. When I got back home that evening, I found Tyler standing in the driveway next to his car, which was being held together by rust, prayer, and sheer stubbornness. The engine was making some horrible grinding noises, and he had the hood up, staring at the motor like he was waiting for divine intervention to fix whatever was wrong with it. "Any idea what that sound is?" he asked me as I walked past. "Expensive," I replied without stopping. He actually laughed, waiting for me to come over and diagnose the problem for free like I always did. That's how it had always worked in our family dynamic. His car would break down. He'd call me over to spend my Saturday afternoon under the hood with my tools, solving his problems while he stood around doing nothing useful. But now he didn't even need to call me over and ask for help. I was right there, living in the garage. I just walked right past him and into my concrete palace, leaving him still standing there, still waiting for me to rescue him from his latest crisis. Friday was absolutely the crown jewel of that week. The washing machine died completely mid-cycle. It just stopped working entirely, leaving a load of clothes floating in standing water. Brittany tried her luck with me again, finding me in the garage doing push-ups because, honestly, what else is there to do in a concrete box with no entertainment? "The washer's broken," she announced, like she was delivering important news. "Yep," I replied, not stopping my workout. "It's full of water and clothes," she continued, clearly expecting me to spring into action. "Sounds right," I said. "Can you—" she started to ask, and I cut her off immediately. Nope. She just stood there staring at me, waiting for the old script to play out where I would jump up, grab my tools, and spend my Friday night fixing their problems. It was probably just a bad pump or a clogged drain line, maybe a $40 part and 2 hours of work, but that version of me was dead. I had killed him myself. "What are we supposed to do?" she asked, sounding genuinely confused that I wasn't automatically solving this for her. I knew that my mom had specifically told her to come ask me about it. Adult things, I replied. Figure it out. They ended up calling a professional repair guy who charged them $200 to install the exact same part that I would have done for cost. Brittany spent the rest of the evening complaining about the expense while wearing my old bedroom slippers, sitting in my chair in what used to be my room. By the second week, the house was really starting to show the effects of genuine neglect. It's amazing how quickly things fall apart when you stop maintaining them properly. The dripping faucet had turned into a steady stream of water. The toilet was running constantly, wasting hundreds of gallons of water every day. That water bill was going to be absolutely brutal when it arrived. Meanwhile, the space heater in the garage died completely, leaving me with just my sleeping bag and whatever warmth my anger could provide. Tyler finally noticed that something fundamental had shifted in the household dynamic. He tried to bond with me over coffee one night, claiming it was his treat like buying a $5 latte, somehow made up for stealing my bedroom and my entire living situation. We sat on the back porch while he attempted to make normal conversation about work, sports, anything that felt like regular brother talk. "What's your deal lately?" he finally asked, cutting through the small talk. "No deal," I replied simply. "You seem different," he pressed. "I'm exactly the same," I told him. "Just not your maintenance guy anymore." "Come on, man," he said, trying to sound reasonable. "We're family." That word again. Family, I repeated back to him. That's what people say when they want free labor from someone. I said it bluntly, knowing that he probably wouldn't even get offended because he lacks the self-awareness to understand what I was really saying. He got quiet for a while, processing what I had said. "I know you've been helping us out," he finally said, like he was acknowledging some small favor. "Helping out?" I actually laughed at that phrase. "That's what you call it? Helping out like I occasionally chip in $20 for pizza? You know what I mean," he said defensively. "I know exactly what you mean," I replied. "You mean I've been paying for your entire existence for 3 years while you contribute absolutely nothing. And somehow in your mind, that's just helping out." We sat there drinking our coffee in complete silence until he finally gave up trying to have a meaningful conversation and went back inside. Back to my room, back to his pregnant girlfriend, back to his completely rent-free life that I had been subsidizing. Week 3 was when things got really interesting. The water heater started making sounds like something out of a horror movie. My mom cornered me in the kitchen on Saturday morning while I was trying to get my coffee and get out of there. "The hot water's not working," she announced. I poured my coffee and said absolutely nothing. "Did you hear me?" she asked, raising her voice. "Yep," I replied without looking up. "Are you going to look at it?" she demanded. "Nope," I said simply. "Why not?" she asked, sounding genuinely confused that I wasn't automatically fixing this problem. "Because I'm not the building superintendent," I explained. "I'm a tenant, a garage tenant specifically." She looked genuinely hurt and started talking about how we're all struggling here and need to work together. "Number 1, you're struggling," I corrected her. "I'm just living in a garage. The water heater probably has sediment buildup and needs flushing, or maybe it needs a new heating element. It's about a $100 job if you know what you're doing. But I'm done knowing what I'm doing for other people's problems." My dad tried the masculine approach that night. He caught me coming back from the gym. Yeah, I had joined a gym because I needed somewhere to shower that actually had hot water. "We need to talk, son," he said, using that serious father tone. "Okay," I replied, stopping to hear what he had to say. "You're changing," he said, like it was some kind of accusation. "I know it's a bit stressful, but Tyler needs help. We're family." There was that word again. "I've been helping for 3 years," I reminded him. "Mortgage, utilities, groceries, repairs. Everything has been coming out of my paycheck." "This is different," he insisted, though he couldn't really explain how. "You're right," I agreed. "This is different. This is me stopping." "You can't just stop," he said, sounding almost panicked. "Watch me," I replied, and walked away from the conversation. He wanted to keep arguing. But honestly, what was he going to say? That I was somehow obligated to fund their entire lives while sleeping in an unheated garage? That it was normal for one person to carry 4 adults indefinitely? Deep down, he knew he had absolutely nothing to argue with. The house felt completely different now. There was tension everywhere except in the garage. My concrete palace might be cold as hell, but at least it was peaceful. No one came out there asking me for anything. No one expected miracles from me. No one took my silence as automatic agreement to fix their latest crisis. Upstairs, they were slowly starting to realize what they had lost. Their free maintenance guy, their automatic bill-paying system, their human safety net. I knew they were starting to spiral because I could hear my mom and Tyler talking in the kitchen. Their voices carried down to the garage because this place has about as much insulation as a cardboard box. "He's been acting weird lately," Tyler was saying. "Real attitude problem." "I've noticed," my mom replied. "Ever since we asked him to take the garage temporarily. You'd think we were asking him to sleep outside or something." "Right. It's not like we're kicking him out," Tyler continued. "Just making room for the baby. Some people just can't handle change." "Always been difficult about things not going his way," my mom added. I'm sitting there listening to this entire conversation about my supposed attitude problem while wearing a jacket indoors because there's no heat, on a moldy couch in an unheated garage. They're discussing the attitude problem of the guy who's been paying their mortgage for 3 straight years. The next morning, my mom cornered me in the kitchen before I could get to work. I was just trying to grab my coffee and get out the door when she physically blocked my path. "We need to talk about your attitude lately," she announced. "My attitude? What am I, a teenager?" I asked. "You should be grateful we let you stay at all," she continued, getting more aggressive. "Always making things difficult when it's just a couple of nights in the garage. Stop being so selfish." I'm standing there holding my coffee mug, looking at this woman who hasn't paid a single bill in 3 years, telling me to be grateful for sleeping in an unheated garage in the house that I keep running with my paycheck. "The golden child gets my room and I should be grateful for concrete and mold," I said. "You're right. I should be grateful." Once they realized there was no other option but to handle their problems themselves, I started noticing them rationing things around the house. They switched to cheaper toilet paper, started buying generic cereal instead of name brands, and actually began turning off lights when they left rooms. It was like watching adults discover basic financial responsibility for the first time. During this period, I quietly moved my tools to a storage unit across town. I started buying groceries just for myself and keeping them in a cooler in the garage. I set up mail forwarding to a P.O. box and scheduled utility disconnections for the end of the month. Finally, I signed a lease on a 1-bedroom apartment across town. It was a nice place on the 2nd floor with actual heating, a bathroom that would be mine alone, and a balcony overlooking the park. It's crazy how appealing basic human dignity becomes when you've been sleeping in a garage for weeks. The apartment hunt was honestly therapeutic. Every place I looked at, I thought about what it would cost to maintain just for myself. Utilities for one person, groceries for one person, a cable bill that wouldn't be split 0 ways. The math was absolutely beautiful. What I had been spending to support 4 people would let me live comfortably alone with money left over. Meanwhile, the house was collapsing systematically. The water heater died completely, leaving everyone without hot water. The toilets were still running constantly, wasting hundreds of gallons of water every day. The kitchen faucet had progressed from dripping to completely flooding the basement every few days. Surprisingly, Tyler actually managed to find a job at a grocery store, but he lasted exactly 11 days before getting fired for calling in sick 3 times in less than 2 weeks. Brittany was getting bigger and more demanding by the day. She started having pregnancy cravings that required immediate attention and, more importantly, my gas money. "We need pickles and ice cream," she'd announce at 9 o'clock at night like it was some kind of emergency. "Sounds like a you problem," I'd tell her. "But I'm pregnant," she'd whine. "Not my kid," I'd respond. "He's your nephew," she'd try. "You're being really unsupportive." "I'm being really honest," I'd reply. She'd storm off to find Tyler, who would somehow figure out how to get to the store without a working car. Usually that meant begging rides from neighbors or walking 3 miles each way in whatever weather. I also started noticing them eating a lot of ramen noodles and discount brand everything. Brittany was constantly complaining about not being able to afford prenatal vitamins. Tyler was trying to fix his car using YouTube videos and prayer, which was about as effective as you'd expect. My mom and dad were learning firsthand what it actually costs to run a household after 3 years of me handling absolutely everything. They had completely forgotten basic financial math. The mortgage payment was $1,400 they didn't have. Utilities were another $300 they couldn't cover. Groceries for 4 adults? Forget about it. They had nothing saved, no backup plan, and no real understanding of how expensive their lives actually were when someone else wasn't absorbing all the costs. And honestly, I was enjoying watching this reality check unfold. I couldn't hide the smirk on my face anymore. Then my dad tried to organize what he called a family meeting one evening. He positioned it as a family discussion about shared responsibilities and set himself up at the kitchen table with a notepad and calculator like he was running a board meeting. "We need to talk about expenses," he started, trying to sound authoritative. "We do," I agreed, curious to see where this was going. Maybe everyone could contribute something, he suggested hopefully. I've been contributing everything for 3 years, I reminded him. But with the baby coming, he tried to continue. Not my baby, I said for what felt like the millionth time. That's not the point, he said, getting frustrated. Then what is the point? I asked. He fumbled with his notepad, trying to find words that would somehow make this my problem again. We're family, he finally said, falling back on the usual guilt trip. We should help each other. I did help, I said calmly. I paid for everything while you all lived completely free. Now I'm done. You can't just abandon us, he said, sounding desperate. I'm not abandoning anyone, I replied. I'm sleeping in a garage. You abandoned me first. Brittany perked up from the couch where she had been listening to this whole conversation. We never asked you to pay for everything, she said, jumping into the discussion. I turned to look at her. Really look at her. Taking in the audacity of what she had just said. You never asked because you never had to, I explained slowly. It just happened organically, and once it started happening, you made sure it kept happening. That's not fair, she protested, sounding genuinely offended. Fair? I repeated. You're sitting in my chair, in my room, wearing my bathrobe, complaining about expenses in a house that I pay for. Let's talk about what's fair. That's when my mom started crying. I honestly don't know why exactly, whether it was guilt, frustration, or just the reality of the situation finally hitting her. Brittany huffed dramatically and stomped upstairs to my former bedroom. Tyler just sat there silently, probably doing mental math on how many packs of cigarettes he could afford if he actually had to contribute to the bills. Then, my dad pulled out a piece of paper that he had obviously prepared ahead of time. I've been running some numbers, he announced, like he was about to present a brilliant solution. Dad, stop, I said, already knowing where this was going. Just hear me out, he insisted. If we all contribute equally, if we split everything 4 ways… Dad, stop, I repeated more firmly. It would only be about $600 each, he continued, ignoring my request to end this ridiculous conversation. I had to cut him off completely. Dad, look around, I said forcefully. Look at this house. Look at your unemployed son and his pregnant girlfriend. Look at your wife who can't work. Look at yourself on disability. Where exactly is 600 times 4 supposed to come from? The silence that followed was absolutely beautiful. Pure mathematics cutting through 3 years of complete delusion and wishful thinking. After that life-changing family meeting, I kept moving my stuff out piece by piece. Nothing obvious that they would notice immediately, but I was systematically removing anything important. Documents, valuable tools, anything I actually needed for my life. I left all the furniture, left the TV, left anything they had grown dependent on over the years. I started working overtime whenever possible, banking every penny I could. Not because I desperately needed the money. Supporting one person is incredibly easy when you've been supporting 4. But because I wanted options. I wanted to be able to walk away completely clean. I wanted to disappear entirely if it became necessary. The morning I had planned to leave for good, I stopped by the house early to grab the last of my personal belongings. That's when I witnessed something that changed everything and showed me exactly what kind of people I was dealing with. There was a college kid, maybe 20 years old, standing in the driveway talking to Tyler. They were walking toward the garage together, with Tyler gesturing around like he was showing off premium real estate to a potential buyer. I parked down the street and watched this unfold. Tyler was giving this kid the full tour of my garage, pointing out the single electrical outlet like it was some kind of premium feature. He was showing off the concrete floor, even demonstrating how the broken space heater worked. The same heater that had left me freezing for weeks. Rustic living space, I heard him say with a straight face. Perfect for a student budget. The kid was nodding along, taking pictures with his phone, looking genuinely interested in what Tyler was selling. Tyler had that manipulative salesman smile he uses when he's conning someone. The same smile he used when he borrowed $2,000 from me 3 years ago for emergency car repairs that somehow became a down payment on a jet ski he sold 2 months later. The kid was asking practical questions about parking, about access to the main house, about whether utilities were included in the rent. Tyler was answering like he owned the entire property, talking confidently about shared kitchen privileges and laundry access, making promises with resources that weren't his to promise. I walked over, keeping my approach casual and non-threatening. "What's happening here?" I asked, though I already knew exactly what was going on. The kid looked confused, clearly sensing that he had walked into some kind of family situation. Tyler looked like he had been caught red-handed doing something he knew was wrong. "Just showing him the space," Tyler said, trying to sound innocent. "What space?" I asked, playing dumb. "The garage apartment for rent," he replied, doubling down on his scam. I stared at him like he had completely lost his mind. What the actual hell? I thought to myself. This absolute piece of garbage was trying to rent out my garage, the concrete box that he had sentenced me to live in, the space I had been sleeping in while paying for his entire existence. How much are you asking? I inquired, genuinely curious about the audacity of this situation. $450 a month, utilities included, he said with a straight face. $450 for a garage with no insulation, one electrical outlet, and a broken space heater. The same garage that wasn't good enough for him and his pregnant girlfriend when they needed a place to live, but was suddenly premium enough to charge rent for. The kid was actually pulling out his phone, probably getting ready to Venmo a deposit. Tyler was already counting money in his head, planning what video games he would buy with his new income stream. I obviously couldn't let this happen. I stepped between them and addressed the kid directly. Kid, walk away, I said firmly. This isn't legal, he doesn't own this property, so he can't rent what isn't his. What do you mean? The kid asked, looking between us. He says a lot of things, I explained. None of them are true. You want a garage to live in? Find one that's actually for rent from someone who has the legal right to rent it. The kid looked back and forth between Tyler and me, quickly realized he had stepped into some serious family drama, and left as fast as he could. Smart kid, honestly. Tyler started sputtering about needing income for the baby and how this was just a temporary arrangement. You kicked me out of my bedroom and put me in a garage, I said, my voice getting louder. Now you're trying to rent that same garage for profit. It's not like that, he protested weakly. Then what's it like? I demanded. You're leaving anyway, he said, revealing that he knew more than he should have. How did you know that? I asked. He immediately shut up, realizing he had said too much and revealed that someone had been going through my personal belongings. Instead of asking me directly about my plans like a normal person would, he had decided to capitalize on the situation and try to make money off my misery. I had to seriously control myself to keep from punching him in the face. You went through my things, I stated. Mom noticed some stuff was gone, he admitted. So you decided to rent out my current living space without telling me. It's not your space, he had the nerve to say. I pay the mortgage on this house every single month, I reminded him. For 3 years straight. That doesn't mean, he started to argue. It means everything, I cut him off. The beautiful part about his twisted logic was that the garage wasn't good enough for him and Brittany to live in, but it was suddenly good enough to rent to some random college kid for profit. They needed my bedroom for their comfort and convenience, but my discomfort and suffering was just a business opportunity to them. I left him standing there and went inside the house to find my parents in the kitchen, drinking coffee that I had paid for, in a house that I had kept running, discussing their day like everything was completely normal. So Tyler's trying to rent out the garage, I casually mentioned, dropping this bombshell into their morning routine. Apparently, they had absolutely no idea what their golden child was doing behind their backs. My mom looked genuinely confused. Rent it to who? She asked. Some random college student, I explained. $450 a month for the space he stuck me in. My dad's facial expression changed completely. What? He said, sounding shocked. I told them the whole story. How the same concrete box that wasn't good enough for Tyler's pregnant girlfriend was suddenly premium real estate when there was money to be made from it. The truth hit them like a freight train. They had been so focused on accommodating Tyler and his pregnancy situation that they had completely forgotten who was actually keeping this house running. Now, their unemployed son was trying to profit off space that belonged to the person who had been paying for everything. My dad's eyes went wide as he started calculating what losing me would actually mean. No mortgage payments, no utilities, no financial safety net. They had absolutely nothing saved, nowhere to go, and no backup plan whatsoever. That's... my dad started, then stopped because there was no good way to finish that sentence. Entrepreneurial? I suggested sarcastically. Creative problem solving? Innovative revenue generation? That idiot is trying to illegally rent out your property, my dad said, the words coming out strangled. He was clearly thinking about what would happen if I decided to call the cops or contact a lawyer about this. He didn't finish his thought out loud, but I could see him spiraling as he realized the implications. 3 years of letting me carry the entire family financially, and now his unemployed son was actively committing fraud that could land them all in serious legal trouble, while simultaneously sabotaging the one person keeping them off the street. Where is he? My dad asked, his voice tight with anger. Probably still in the driveway, I said. Probably posting the listing online already, trying to find more suckers. My mom was shaking her head in disbelief. He wouldn't do that, she said weakly. He would, he did, and he is, I replied. My dad stood up, and for the first time in months I saw actual genuine anger on his face. And it wasn't directed at me. It was aimed at the situation, at Tyler, and at himself for letting things get this far out of control. This is your house, he said, his voice shaking slightly. You pay for it. We've been… He trailed off, looking for words that wouldn't make them sound completely parasitic. Taking advantage, I supplied helpfully. The phrase you're looking for is taking advantage. My mom started crying again. But these weren't the manipulative tears she usually used to get her way. These were genuine realization tears. The kind that come when you finally see yourself clearly and absolutely hate what you're looking at. We didn't mean for it to get like this, she said through her tears. Nobody ever means for it to get like this, but here we are, I replied. We thought… She started, then stopped. We thought it was temporary. We thought we'd get back on our feet eventually. When? I asked bluntly. It's been 3 years. When exactly were you planning to get back on your feet? They all went silent because there was no plan. There had never been a plan. They had just found a solution that worked perfectly for them and decided it should be permanent. My dad headed toward the door, looking determined. I'll handle this, he said. No, I stopped him. I'll handle it. I handle everything else around here, don't I? I walked back outside to find Tyler still in the driveway, now on his phone. He was probably looking up tenant rights or some other nonsense, trying to figure out how to make his illegal rental scheme work. Maybe he was calling other college kids, seeing if he could get a bidding war going for my concrete palace. Get off the property, I said firmly. What? He asked, clearly caught off guard by my directness. Get off my property, now. You can't just… He started to argue. I can, I do, and I am. I cut him off. My dad and mom had followed me outside, and Brittany appeared in the doorway drawn by the commotion. The whole family was gathered for what was about to be the final confrontation. This is insane, Tyler said, looking at my parents for backup. You're seriously going to kick me out over this? I'm not kicking you out yet, I clarified, but you're not renting my garage to anyone, ever. It's not your garage, he protested. Everything here is mine, I replied. The house, the garage, the food in the fridge, the electricity you're using to charge that phone. All mine, paid for by me. You're guests here and you're here because I allow it. Brittany decided to chime in from the doorway. We have rights, she said, her voice cracking. You have nothing, I told her flatly. No lease, no rental agreement, no rights whatsoever. You're here because I allow it. You can't evict a pregnant woman, she tried, playing what she thought was her trump card. I'm not evicting anyone, I explained. I'm preventing your boyfriend from illegally subletting space that he doesn't own to people who would have no legal protections for money that he has no right to collect. My dad finally spoke up, backing me completely. She's right about the ownership, he said to Tyler. This is his house. Tyler looked absolutely betrayed by this statement. You're taking his side? He shouted at my dad. There are no sides here, my dad replied firmly. There are just facts. He pays for everything. We contribute nothing. Now you're trying to profit off his generosity. It's wrong. It's not like that, Tyler started stammering, trying to come up with some justification. Then explain it, my dad demanded. Explain how renting out his sleeping space for profit while he pays for your entire life isn't exactly what it looks like. Tyler started going on about responsibility and contributing to household expenses and trying to help the family. Bullshit, I said, cutting through his lies. Here's what really happened. You found out I'm leaving. Instead of asking why or trying to fix the situation that caused it, you decided to monetize my replacement. You were going to rent out the garage to someone else, pocket the money, and keep living completely free. That's not… He tried to interrupt. That's exactly what it is, I cut him off. You were planning to collect rent from some college kid while still not contributing anything to the actual expenses. The garage makes money, but somehow the mortgage still gets paid by magic, right? The silence was deafening. Even Brittany had nothing to say to that logic. I watched them all standing there, completely helpless, with no management skills and no brain cells between them. Here are your 3 options, I announced. You ready? Everyone nodded, knowing they had no choice but to listen. Option 1. You want to stay here? Fine. Market rate rent, utilities, groceries, everything gets split 4 ways equally, every single month. We can't afford… My mom started to protest. Option 2, I continued, cutting her off. 60 days to find other living arrangements. I'll even help with moving costs. Clean break, no hard feelings. 60 days isn't enough time, Brittany tried to argue, but I cut her off too. Option 3. I leave tonight. I stop paying the mortgage, stop paying utilities, and you figure it out yourselves. The house goes into foreclosure within 3 months, and you're all on the street by Christmas. The math was finally sinking in for all of them. A 4-way split on the $1,400 mortgage plus utilities plus food would require about $600 from each person monthly. Completely doable for working adults, but absolutely impossible for their current situation of chronic unemployment and disability checks. Can we think about it? My mom asked desperately. You can think for 60 seconds, I replied. I've got places to be. My dad looked at my mom looked at Tyler looked at Brittany, and Brittany looked at her phone, probably calculating what apartments cost in their extremely limited price range. The 60 days, my mom said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. We'll take the 60 days. Smart choice, I said, feeling genuinely relieved that they had picked the most reasonable option. But Tyler wasn't finished yet. He still had that entrepreneurial spirit burning inside him. This is bullshit, he said angrily. We're family. Family? I repeated incredulously. You moved your pregnant girlfriend into my bedroom, stuck me in a garage, and then tried to rent that garage for profit. That's not family behavior. That's slumlord behavior. He literally said, and I'm not making this up, I was trying to help with expenses. By pocketing rent money? I asked. How does that help anyone except you? Brittany tugged on his arm from the doorway, finally showing some sense. Let's just go inside, she said quietly. But I wasn't finished yet. 3 years of swallowed words and suppressed anger were finally coming up. You know what real family does? I said, my voice rising. Family says thank you. Family contributes what they can. Family doesn't treat one member like a servant while everyone else lives for free. We appreciate, my mom started to say. No, you don't, I interrupted. You expected it. You felt entitled to it. You got so comfortable with me paying for everything that you forgot it wasn't normal. You forgot that most adults have to pay their own way through life. My dad stepped forward, his voice heavy with what sounded like genuine remorse. He's right, he admitted. We forgot. I forgot. 3 years of letting you carry us while we… He just shrugged, unable to finish the sentence. But I was injured, he added, almost defensively. 3 years ago, I pointed out. What's your excuse now? That question shut him up completely because there was no good answer. My mom was sobbing openly now. Tyler looked like he wanted to hit something but was smart enough to know I'd hit back much harder. And Brittany was clearly calculating which parent they could move in with next. 60 days, I repeated firmly. Starting tomorrow. I'll pay the bills one more time to give you a head start. After that, you're completely on your own. Where will we go? My mom asked through her tears. That's the beauty of being adults, I replied. You get to figure it out yourselves. I started walking back to my truck, completely done with the conversation, done with the drama, and done with being their permanent solution to every problem. But Tyler had one more parting shot to take. You're going to regret this, he called after me. When the baby comes, when we really need help, you're going to regret burning this bridge. I turned back one final time to look at him. I didn't burn anything, I said calmly. I just stopped being the bridge. And that was that. The conversation was over, the decision was made, and my life was about to change completely. 2 months later, I'm typing this story from my actual apartment. A second-floor unit with real heating that works, my own bathroom that no one else uses, a bedroom with a door that actually locks, and a balcony overlooking the park where I drink my coffee every morning without anyone asking me to fix anything. The luxury of basic privacy hits completely different when you've been sleeping in a garage for weeks. The family did manage to find a place to live. They're renting a 2-bedroom duplex across town for about $900, which split 4 ways is actually manageable when everyone contributes their fair share. Tyler is working nights at a warehouse now, the same kind of job my dad had before his back injury. Turns out he's perfectly capable of holding down steady employment when his survival actually depends on it. Funny how motivation works when there's no safety net. Brittany had the baby, and from what I hear, it's a healthy kid. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and 0 chance of me babysitting. They named him after our grandfather, probably hoping to score some family loyalty points with that choice. My mom got a part-time job at a craft store, and it turns out her anxiety is completely manageable when staying home isn't an option anymore. My dad is doing consulting work from home, using professional skills he had apparently forgotten about when someone else was handling all the bills. They're struggling, of course they are. That's exactly what happens when you suddenly have to adult after taking a 3-year vacation from responsibility. But they're managing, they're surviving, and most importantly, they're learning what things actually cost when you have to pay for them yourself, instead of having someone else handle everything. I got a text from Tyler last week that just said, "Rent's due tomorrow and we're short $40. I didn't respond because it's not my problem anymore. My mom calls me monthly with updates that I don't ask for. How the baby's doing, what new words he's learning, how they're managing their tight budget. She always sounds genuinely surprised that they're making it work, like the idea of paying their own way through life was some impossible concept. My dad texts me occasionally with home repair questions. Random stuff like leaky faucets, squeaky doors, or furnaces making weird noises. I answer sometimes if I'm feeling generous, but usually I just send him YouTube links and let him figure it out himself. The old house ended up getting sold because I couldn't afford it on my own. And honestly, I didn't want to anyway. There were too many memories attached to that place of being treated like an ATM with a tool belt. The bank took their cut, the realtor got their commission, and we split what was left over after the mortgage and fees were paid. It wasn't much money, but it represented closure for me. I bought a motorcycle with part of that money and used the rest to furnish my apartment exactly how I wanted it. No compromises, no group decisions, no considering anyone else's needs or preferences. Pure selfishness felt absolutely incredible after 3 years of pure selflessness. Tyler tried to reconcile with me last month. He showed up at my apartment with takeout food and what sounded like a rehearsed apology. I let him in, grabbed some plates, and listened to his whole speech about family and mistakes and second chances. He claimed he finally understood what they had done to me and how they had treated me over those 3 years. I told him that what he understood was that he had to work now, which was very different from actually getting the deeper lesson. His apology was noted and acknowledged, but real understanding comes from genuine experience, not just from necessity forcing your hand. He talked about how hard it had been adjusting to actual adult responsibility, paying bills, creating budgets, making choices between wants and needs. All the things I had been handling for them while they lived in complete fantasy land. He asked me directly if we were done as a family, if there was no path back to how things used to be, and whether his son would ever have an uncle in his life. I explained to him that we were still family, but that family didn't mean what he thought it meant. It doesn't mean one person carries everyone else indefinitely. Real family means everyone carries their own weight and helps when someone genuinely stumbles. The difference was that they hadn't stumbled. They had deliberately sat down and expected me to carry them forever. He finished his food in complete silence, and when he left, he shook my hand. That's what adults do. That's what equals do. Last week, I got a text from my dad that said, "Fixed the kitchen sink myself today. Watched 3 YouTube videos. Took 4 hours, but I got it done." I didn't respond to the message, but I did save it. Progress is progress, even when it comes 3 years too late. As for me, I'm living exactly the life I should have been living 3 years ago. My own space with my own rules, spending my own money on my own priorities. No one treating my paycheck like community property that they're entitled to. The apartment is quiet most nights. I come home from work, cook whatever I want to eat, watch whatever I want to watch, and go to bed when I'm actually tired. These are simple things that feel absolutely revolutionary when you've been everyone else's solution for years. Tyler texts me occasionally now with normal updates, stories about the baby, random stuff from work, just regular brother conversation. Not asking for money or favors or expecting me to solve his problems. Just talking like normal people do. It's genuine progress. Last month, I happened to drive past their duplex and saw Tyler in the yard with the baby, my dad working on their front steps, and my mom hanging laundry on a clothesline. It looked like a normal family doing normal family things, with no one sitting around waiting for someone else to solve their problems for them. They don't need me anymore, and that's exactly how it should be. The garage where I used to sleep is empty now. The house belongs to complete strangers. The family is scattered across town, but functioning independently, and I'm finally free to live my own life on my own terms. Consider that mission accomplished.